Hello, everyone. Welcome to our exciting webinar on how Marqeta became the leader in hiring manager satisfaction. So hello to everyone who is joining online live, and to all of you who are speaking to us or watching us from the future in the recording. Hello to all of you. Thank you for taking the time to join us. And maybe as we wait here for you to settle into this room and get cozy, maybe you could let us know, because we are very curious, if you are currently measuring hiring manager satisfaction. You will see that the team has put a poll, or is going to put a poll in the chat, where you can select the correct answer. And if you are also if you want to elaborate on your answer and tell us why you are not measuring, or if you are measuring, then how, then we would also love to know that. So I think I see there is a very equal distribution here per each answer. That is very good to know, and good to know that those of you who are not measuring yet, it is on the roadmap for you coming up. Hello, Lars, and hello, Abigail. And I think now we can start. Because we have a very packed schedule ahead of us, so I wouldn't want to miss out on any of the content. So I am Claudia, and I am Start's Content Marketing Manager, and I will be hosting the webinar today. But first, maybe a couple of words about who we are as Start, and probably plenty of you watching know what we do and why we do it. But Start is the leading platform for candidate-centric recruitment, and it was born from the merger of Start and Talent Hub. So we have been, between us, measuring candidate experience and hiring manager satisfaction for many, many years already. So we have a lot of data backing us up, and we leverage that feedback and those advanced analytics to offer a suite of products to enhance the hiring experience for both candidates and the world's top employees. So besides me, there is also Lucas here from Marqeta, who is in the title as the leader in hiring manager satisfaction. So maybe, Lucas, you could tell us a little bit about Marqeta, your role within Marqeta, and a little bit about you and who you are.
Yeah, absolutely. So hi, everyone. I'm Lucas, and I lead talent operations and programs at Marqeta. I have been here for about 2.5 years. Prior to joining Marqeta, I wore a couple of different hats in companies ranging from 500 to 5,000 employees, doing anything from coordination, recruiting, programs, and operations, and grew my skill set and love for the talent space. Currently in my role, I have the pleasure of overseeing systems, managing our recruiting coordination team, which we call our candidate experience partners, analytics, overall process and programs as it relates to the talent space, and last but definitely not least, candidate experience. In terms of Marqeta, we are a financial technology company, and we are at the forefront of embedded finance, really wanting to reshape the landscape of the industry. We are a leading modern card issuing platform that enables companies to build, issue, and manage innovative payment solutions. So essentially, our guiding light is to enable companies to navigate the complexities of payments and allowing them to focus on what truly matters, which is bringing exceptional products to the market. But yeah, that is a little bit about myself and Marqeta.
Great. Muted myself, I think. Great, thank you for this. I'm so excited for our conversation coming up. But first, maybe I will introduce the agenda for what's in store for us. So I will quickly set the basics and set the tone here for what is Hiring Manager NPS. And why are we measuring it, and what are the benchmarks, and why do we need to know them? Then we will follow up with some highlights from our 2023 Hiring Manager Satisfaction Benchmark Report, which is a mouthful to say, but there is also a lot of really good information there. And you will be the first ones to actually be able to access this report and download it at the end of this session. So if you don't get something while I'm explaining, you will get the report coming your way at the end to download. Then we'll have our conversation with Lucas, where he will share his best practices and any tips and experiences around measuring and improving on hiring manager satisfaction. And we will end with a Q&A. So if you have any questions throughout the report, you can write them down in the chat, and we will keep note of them and come back to them in the Q&A. All right, so let's get started. So the Hiring Manager NPS, which is Hiring Manager Net Promoter Score, is our spin on the very widely used way to measure satisfaction. So different companies in various industries use the question of how likely are you to recommend the company or a service or an experience to a friend or colleague. And I am sure that all of you have in the past received that question in one shape or form. So we have adapted this question to both our candidate Net Promoter Score, but also the hiring manager Net Promoter Score. So here we ask the hiring managers at the companies measuring hiring manager satisfaction, based on your experience, how likely are you to recommend working with our recruitment team to other hiring managers? And in this way, you can keep a pulse on your performance and understand how the collaboration of your team is doing, and whether it is promoting you meeting your hiring goals or whether it is hindering them. So the way this is measured is the hiring managers get this question and they are presented with a scale of 0 to 10 when they can pick the score. And if they answer anything between 0 to 6, they are considered detractors. If they answer anything between 7 and 8, they are passive. And if they say anything above 9, then they are promoters. Then you are given a score, which is calculated by taking the percentage of detractors, taking it away from promoters, and you are given a number on a scale of -100 to +100. And that is a very wide scale. So that is when the benchmarks come in. And that is why it is important for you to understand in relation to something, if -50 is maybe better than you thought, and if +65 is actually worse, because companies in your industry or in your region or in your size are scoring better on a specific question. So the reason why we are focusing so much on hiring managers specifically is because of this very striking fact that 57% of recruiters believe that hiring managers don't understand recruiting, while 63% of hiring managers think that recruiters don't understand the jobs they need to fill. So that is creating a lot of misalignments. And how are you supposed to know if you have problems in that collaboration if you don't ask the stakeholders involved? So if you are scoring low on Hiring Manager NPS, this is a very, very big sign that your current hiring process is not as optimized as it should be to deliver the desired results. So you are probably experiencing issues and struggles trying to reach your hiring goals. Your quality of hire is probably low because the recruiters and the hiring managers are not understanding their expectations. You are probably providing a poor candidate experience as a result of that misalignment. And it is also probable that you are not hiring efficiently. On the other hand, if your hiring manager NPS is high, that means your collaboration is probably very smooth, and your hiring managers and recruiters are talking to each other. They are working well together, and as a result, you are probably reaching your hiring goals. So your quality of hire is higher, your cost per hire is lower because you have to spend less time and less resources looking for the best candidates. You also have, with a high hiring manager NPS, the opportunity to have a lot of team recognition. So keep that motivation going by shouting out the ones who are doing the best, and maybe taking action when you see somebody is performing not as well. So Now we move on to the report, and this is also something, this is the second report that we are doing in hiring manager satisfaction, second one in a row. And this year, for the first time, we are releasing a list of the top 10 performing companies in 2023. And unfortunately, we are not able to disclose all of those companies, but you can see on the right their scores. And it makes us very, very happy to see that the top 10 companies are scoring so high. But it also, for those who are not measuring hiring manager satisfaction yet, or are measuring it but don't know the benchmarks, probably a big sign to know that there is a lot of competition possibly in your space. So you should strive to improve it to as high as 91. That is almost near perfect. Which is very good. And I'm sure we will also hear from Lucas later on how Marqeta managed to score so high on average as 86. So the first data point I would like to talk about here is the general hiring manager NPS and compare it against last year, because this is a very interesting trend. As you can see, the median score for last year was 4 points higher than it is this year. But the graph is structured in a way to show you also the distribution of these scores. So you can see that last year, the top of the top companies were extremely happy and had almost no issues to report. But below that top of the iceberg, you have a lot of scores that are very scattered, which means that there is a lot of inconsistencies in the process. This year, this is a lot more closer together, and the hiring managers who are the companies with the hiring managers who are the happiest are even happier than they were last year. But you can see also that the lowest score that has been given in this range is a lot higher. So last year, the lowest score was 7, and this year it is 19. So there is a very positive trend overall. So we should be very happy about that, because these companies have probably cracked the code to how to have happy hiring managers. Then the next breakdown we have is between regions. And here we have grouped the regions because of the locations of our customers using the hiring manager module. We have grouped it into 2. So we have Europe, Middle East, and Africa, who are grouped together with the UK as well. And we've got the Americas, which is North and South America. And here you can see that the difference is quite stark, both this year and last year. This year more so than last year. So there is a 20-point difference between the average score in Europe, Middle East, and Africa and the Americas. And also quite a big jump up for the Americas year on year. And this does not mean that hiring manager satisfaction is inherently better in the Americas. You should also, when analyzing these results against your own, take into consideration maybe cultural differences in attitudes and expectations in recruitment. And maybe we can hear a little bit more about that from Lucas later on, who is based in the Americas, so in the better performing region. So he is definitely one we should be listening to. The next breakdown, we have company size. So again, here we have grouped, to show the data in the best possible way, we have grouped the company sizes into small and medium, which includes companies that are 1,000 full-time employees or less, and large companies who are above the 1,000 mark. And here you can see that the difference is actually even more striking than in the comparison between regions. So the small and medium companies not only have an extremely high average hiring manager NPS, it is also a lot more condensed. So this means that the majority of those who are happy in those small and medium companies are extremely happy, whereas the ones below the median are not scoring as wide of a difference between each other. So large companies are very scattered. There is maybe not as much consistency in the process, and maybe it is more difficult to obtain that consistency due to the size of the company. But overall, the large companies should definitely follow the example of the small and medium in the hiring manager satisfaction. The next category here is hiring manager satisfaction by department, which is something we have done this year for the first time. And you can see here that engineering, product, and data is a department that has a very, very high hiring manager satisfaction in comparison to shopping and retail, which is a more front-facing service side of a business, who are performing almost half as well as the top department here, which is engineering, product, and data. And what was interesting here, we couldn't compare this data against last year because this is the first time we are showing it, but we compared it against this year's candidate experience or candidate net promoter score benchmark report. And what was interesting here to see was that the top three and the bottom three departments here are almost flipped. So the ones who are performing the best in terms of candidate net promoter score are performing not as well in hiring manager net promoter score, and vice versa. And this is interesting and could also point to the fact that the candidate journey is a lot longer than the hiring manager journey in terms of touch points. So the candidates can encounter a negative experience more easily than the hiring managers. Now, the last breakdown before we move over to our conversation with Lucas is the theme ratings. So the hiring manager satisfaction survey is structured in two sections. The first section is the NPS question, and the second section is a series of questions grouped into different categories that can be rated on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 to 10 again. And here we do not calculate detractors or promoters. So instead we just take an average of the scores, between 0 and 10. And those four themes are role kickoff meeting, recruiter, candidates, and recruitment process. So here we can, based on those questions, understand the specific areas for improvement if there are any. And you can see here that the averages are pretty consistent across all of the themes, and the only one that is sticking out that is quite low is candidates at 8.7, and that is possibly due to the fact that we are experiencing a global talent shortage. So it is probably very difficult for recruiters to provide hiring managers with high quality candidates that they will be satisfied with. And you can see the breakdown of these themes by region and by company size and also by department in the report. But I think it is time for us to move to our conversation with Lucas, which is probably something that you have been waiting for. At the end of this session, you will all get a copy of this report, so you can easily download it. But for now, I think without further ado, it is the perfect time to bring you to the stage, or back to the stage, Lucas. And maybe we can start with the question of, why did you decide to start measuring your candidate and hiring manager experience in the first place?
Yeah, that's a great question. And, we essentially here at Marqeta recognize the critical role these experiences play in our hiring process. And we didn't at the time have a great way to customize the questions we want to ask and also automate as much as we can with our existing ATS setup. So, come and start where we're able to capture all of that data and view analytics in real time. We understand that delivering an exceptional candidate experience not only enhances our employer brand, but it also directly impacts our ability to attract top talent. So we really want any candidate that interacts with the Marqeta brand regardless of the decision of the hiring process, to leave with a positive impression. And similarly, by prioritizing the hiring manager experience, we wanted to measure the partnership and collaboration and get aligned through the recruiting journey and get feedback on how we, as a recruiting function, be a strategic partner to the business as well.
Yeah, those are very, very important reasons, I think, to start, and should be an inspiration to many. But now there is a lot of data that you can collect and focus on in here, because you can slice it and dice it in many different ways. But which metric do you consider the most important, and how has its adoption influenced your approach to recruitment?
Yeah, I think every metric we measure are important relative to the audience that we're presenting that data to. But in the spirit of this webinar, obviously hiring manager satisfaction has been critical for us. Well, first, we never really had an easy way to measure our partnership with our hiring managers. So gathering that insight was already a great win from the start. And as we made hires and started to send surveys to our managers, it gave us better insight on what our hiring managers need from us as a talent partner. So whether it's more clarity on best practices for interviewing for those hiring managers who are more green, or a nod to continuing our recruiting efforts to source from underrepresented groups, we wouldn't have gotten this data point without measuring this metric and surveying our hiring manager population. So through the hiring manager satisfaction metric, we built out interviewer training to enable not just hiring managers, but the broader interviewer population to learn about best practices on how to engage with candidates, on what to say, what not to say, and what not. And we also continue to be intentional about our sourcing pipeline as well.
Perfect. So, I mean, now you have this data and you have a way to collect it and analyze it in an easy way. So now maybe let's flip it to the hiring managers themselves. How would you say that partnering up with us in Start, how has that enhanced the experience of the hiring managers themselves?
Yeah, I think beyond just getting a successful hire in partnership with our recruiting team, partnering with Start and building this specific survey for this population allows our hiring managers an outlet to voice their feedback. And if we take a step back, if you think about the hiring journey as a whole, there really isn't a clear point in time or vehicle for our hiring managers to share their learnings back to the broader recruiting team. But because we have Start and because we're able to aggregate and see both qualitative and quantitative data, we can understand any gap and connect the dots on themes our hiring manager is sharing with us. And again, the survey in of itself just gives the autonomy to the hiring managers to sit down, reflect back on the hiring process, and really give recruiting advice, feedback on how we can be better, how we can better the hiring journey from end to end.
Perfect. And what about, and you mentioned obviously there is qualitative and quantitative aspects to the data, but then how are you maybe using the qualitative aspect of it, if you don't mind sharing?
Yeah, absolutely. Like we read through every single comment that our hiring managers share with us, and from there, it's like we see the themes, right? It's like we can see, are they dissatisfied with a certain part of the process? Is there a way where we can shorten the interview process just to make sure that candidates aren't fatigued by too much redundancy in the interview? So it's understanding those kinds of comments and then actioning on that right after, where we are able to make that impact and adjust our expectations with our hiring managers, adjust what we ask during the intake calls, and setting expectations really clearly early on. So yeah.
Yeah, perfect. And as you've seen in what I have presented earlier, large companies seem to be struggling a lot with nailing this hiring manager satisfaction, and they are falling behind small and medium. You belong to the small and medium category, so I thought maybe you have some specific tips or ways that would be inspiring for larger companies to implement from your own approach.
Yeah, this is such a great question. And I think the word of wisdom that I'll share is something that a former manager that has ingrained in me that stands true to this day, which is slow down to go faster. So like three strategies or practices that come to mind are: first is an ops and process win. So we spent time streamlining and documenting the questions that we ask during the intake or the kickoff with our hiring managers. So we essentially gathered all the questions every recruiter would ask and consolidated that to a template where it would capture everything you need to be in lockstep with our hiring manager. And second is a recruiter practice. So because we've standardized the kickoff process, our recruiters know what to ask, which then gives them the autonomy to dive even deeper during the kickoff and truly understand that hiring need before jumping into action. And third is looking at the data and finding the trends. We typically have a quarterly review of looking back through all of our survey data. Look at the quantitative metrics. What were there areas that went down? Was there a reason for a fluctuation? And then again, back to the qualitative comments, were there recurring themes that came up that we can actually action on? So to tie it all back together, we invested the time and energy to make sure that our processes and our conversations with our hiring managers make sense, and so that it has a tangible impact.
Perfect. But how do you then, I guess maybe an issue of the large companies could also be internal buy-in on measuring hiring manager satisfaction. Do you have any tips around that?
Ooh, can you elaborate more on internal buy-in?
Yes, of course. So in terms of like, why would people above you, for example, think that hiring manager satisfaction is important to measure? Like, how do you build that case if there is somebody in the audience, for example, who is looking to start measuring hiring experience, but they're finding it hard to build ROI and a business case around it to get that approval from above to get started, for example.
Yeah.
What would you say to them?
Tie it back to our hiring goals, right?
Mhm.
It's like it is so clear that when we have a delightful experience, not for just for hiring managers, but for candidates overall, it leads to top talent. And because we have that case, and because we have Starred, and we actually use the data and the reports and benchmarks from Starred, that was one of the ways where we actually made that business proposal to show to our leadership to that measuring these experiences are critical and important to the broader hiring journey, and essentially for our hiring goals as well.
Yeah, perfect. And you also just touched upon your goals here, but maybe you could elaborate a little bit further on how has partnering up with Start like got you closer to your hiring goals.
Yeah, I can't emphasize enough on how great it is that Starch sends everything automatically and shows the data in such a concise dashboard. Again, we were able to create benchmarks for ourselves throughout the hiring journey, and now to continue to measure and monitor how we're doing as a recruiting function. So whether it's setting certain NPSs in various parts of the process, or defining specifically how we can support our hiring manager and interviewer population, I feel like Start has the need to put pen to paper what exactly the metrics we should be measuring. And now, because we have that solid set of data to compare year over year against ourselves, against our other peers in the industry, tracking and pivoting where we need to continually improve is something that we always try to focus on, and is always a goal for us year over year.
Yeah, it's so important. And I think it also reiterates what we always say, which is what you cannot measure or what you are not measuring, you cannot improve on, because how are you supposed to if you don't know what it is? And maybe to close off our conversation, if there is one thing that you are the most proud of in your work with candidate experience and hiring manager satisfaction, what would it be?
Oof, it's so hard to pinpoint one. So if I could share one for candidate experience and one for hiring manager experience, that would be great. So for candidate experience, I'm obviously super proud of our team making great hires and closing tough roles. But beyond that, it's the branding piece that I take pride in. What I mean by that is seeing candidates who weren't selected for the roles here at Marqeta sharing with us what positive process that they've had with our recruiters, our hiring managers, our interviewers, and our coordinators as well. And I think that this allows us to have a great reputation as a company who prioritizes the experience and not lose the people first, the human element approach in our hiring journey. So this also gives us a talent network of potential hires in the future who we can absolutely re-engage with because we've provided such a delightful experience. And on the flip side, for the hiring manager experience, beyond just making a hire, it's seeing that partnership between recruiting and the business develop. It's moments when our hiring managers and our interviewers lean on us to help make those tough decisions in hiring that validates that we're doing something right here at Marqeta and will continue to do so.
Yeah, I also think what you say, like on the human level, it makes you proud and happy to see that you are making other people happy.
Yeah.
Great. Well, that was the conversation. I think we have all learned so much, and you have drawn so much attention to all the important parts of recruitment and why it's important to measure it. And the team is going to put the report now in the chat for you to download. But we are going to move to the Q&A. So we already have a question from Abigail, and the question is, so do you think that having a hiring manager satisfaction score makes Marqeta a more competitive employer?
Oh, absolutely. Having that high satisfaction score, it gives us a significant competitive advantage as an employer. It indicates that we prioritize the experience and needs of our hiring managers, and by ensuring that they are enabled, this directly fosters a great candidate experience since they know how to speak to a candidate and can lean on their recruiting partner for any guidance that they need. And I think it also shows that, again, we are true partners to the business. We will move fast when we need to, we will push back when the time is right, and we will provide strategic counsel on best practices to ensure that we're making the right decision to grow Marqeta and hire the best candidates, all while ensuring that our hiring managers feel supported.
Yeah, very true. And I don't know if there is anyone else. Okay, Abigail, I think I actually have another question. How do you think a high hiring manager NPS contributes to providing a good candidate experience overall? So what is the link between the two?
Oh, I think it creates a positive ripple effect throughout the entire recruiting journey, right? When hiring managers are satisfied and engaged, they are more likely to collaborate effectively with recruiters. They are more likely to provide timely feedback and advocate for candidates within the organization. So again, I feel like this leads to a much smoother and more transparent communication, leads to faster decision making, and ultimately a more positive experience for candidates.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, and we have another question from Mark. What was your biggest challenge in implementing Start?
Ooh,
If you had any,
yeah.
maybe you didn't have any challenges.
I will say we had an amazing CSM. So Marcella, props to you. But I think the hardest part was honestly just being acclimated to the platform, understanding what triggers we need to be really clear on. Obviously, we wanted to make sure that our surveys go out to the right audience at the right time. So again, just making sure that we check off all those boxes. But I think because Star provided such an amazing kind of onboarding for us, it was pretty seamless in my opinion. But I think the hardest part would definitely be setting up all the automations there.
Yeah, I mean, it's quite a robust platform. So luckily we have all our talented CSMs who can help to do that. Okay, so I think, Bianca, every time we still have time for questions. So if you have, keep them coming. Okay, so then we have a spin off the question that I already asked, but then here I think it's more specific. So how did you convince them? Because you could measure by yourself with Google Forms or SurveyMonkey. How did you convince your superiors to choose Start specifically?
Yeah, I think it's because Start is so intentional about the recruiting process specifically, right? It's a SurveyMonkey or a Google form or any other tool aren't going to be embedded in your ATS. And I think one of the biggest selling points is that because we're all able to automate this, we are able to set it and forget it in a sense, right? It's like we don't need recruiters or our coordinators to manually send a survey every single time. And because that lifts off that manual burden for them, I think that was such a huge use case. And then just showing them that the data comes in real time, like just showing the dashboard, showing all the analytics that comes with the platform. I don't think a tool like SurveyMonkey is able to do that, or and just being able to show them that all of this data is like aggregated really nicely. And I've seen Start like essentially develop its product year, like months over months, and like building out more dashboards and certain categories. For example, like the comments section, where they are like finding themes for us instead of us just having to go through each and every single like comment. Like that is a win in of itself. It's saving us so much time from like actually analyzing the raw data, if that makes sense. So that's kind of like my take on that.
Perfect. And I would say also something that I always like to highlight, and I know I work for Start, so I have to say this, but I am genuinely saying it. I think the benchmarks are also so important, because if you use something so independent of everyone else in the world, like SurveyMonkey, you cannot compare to your competitors. You cannot compare, you like actually you get a score, but you don't know if it's good or bad. So that is, I think, also something that is worth remembering. And I think we have now time for the last question, which again is Mark elaborating on his previous question. So if there is anything that you would do differently with the implementation, knowing what you do now and what it has evolved into?
Yeah, I think one tip that I would give for companies that are interested in or onboarding Start, it's making sure it's clear your process for recruiting, right? It's like I feel like you have to get to a place where it makes sense certain surveys in different parts of the process. So making sure that your process is clean and there are very clear stages of the process of where it makes sense to send the surveys. So I think, again, Start can automate as much as we can, but we also as a customer need to do our job to make sure that our ATS is set up in a way where Start can do its best, which is like sending surveys at the right time and aggregating all that data properly.
Perfect. Okay. I don't think we have time for any more, but thank you so much, Lucas, for a great conversation and all of the tips that you have given us. Don't worry, everyone in the audience, you will get a recording of this if you didn't have enough time to make notes on all the amazing tips. And we will also send you an email with the report as well. And once the session is over, here you will be redirected directly into a survey. So if you've never seen a Start survey, you will experience one for yourself, because we would like to know how you enjoyed this webinar and if there is anything that we could improve. So you'll be taking part in your very own NPS survey if you've never done that before. And yes, that is it. Thank you so much for everything, and have a lovely evening or day, depending on where you are. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.